My dad toasted to the grandkids who actually matter at Easter dinner. My 9-year-old asked me if she was invisible to them. I smiled, kissed her head, and said not anymore. Then I made one phone call that morning that none of them saw coming. I want to start with a single moment. Easter Sunday, my parents' dining room. The good china out, the ham carved, everyone dressed up. My dad stood at the head of the table, glass raised, smiling that big warm smile he saves for special occasions. "Here's to the grandkids who make us proud every single day," he said, and his eyes moved around that table. They landed on my sister Jenny's kids. Ryan, 12, Sophie, 9, little Marcus, 7. They skipped right over my daughter, skipped over Emma like she was furniture. Emma is 9 years old. She was sitting right there in her Easter dress, the yellow one she'd picked herself, holding her juice glass ready to clink. She lowered it slowly when nobody looked at her. Then she leaned into me and whispered something that cracked my entire chest open. "Mom, am I invisible to them?" I kissed her hair, smiled my steadiest smile. "Not anymore, baby," I said. She didn't fully understand what I meant. My parents were about to find out. Because 3 hours before that dinner, I had already made one phone call. And by Monday morning, everything was different. My name is Diane. I'm 32 years old. I'm a 5th-grade teacher in Cincinnati, which means I spend my days making sure every single child in my classroom feels seen, valued, and important. The irony of what my own parents were doing to my daughter is not lost on me. Emma is 9. She has her dad's dark eyes and my stubborn streak, and she writes these little stories in a notebook she carries everywhere. Fantasy stuff, dragons and magic and girls who save themselves. She's funny and curious, and the kind of kid who stops to look at bugs on the sidewalk because she genuinely wants to know what they're doing. She is, without question, the most remarkable person I have ever met. Her father, my ex-husband Rob, has been out of the picture since Emma was 4. It was his choice. We don't talk about him much because Emma has decided she doesn't need someone who chose to leave, and I have decided she is 100% correct. So it's been the two of us. Me and Emma against the world. I thought my parents were part of our team. I was wrong about that. My sister Jenny is 35. She married her college boyfriend Kevin right after graduation, and they bought a house in the suburbs and had 3 kids in 4 years. And my parents look at that life like it's the answer to a question they've been asking forever. Ryan is on the travel soccer team. Sophie takes competitive gymnastics. Marcus just started Little League. My parents go to everything, every game, every meet, every practice when they can swing it. Mom packs snacks. Dad keeps stats in a little notebook he bought specifically for Ryan's soccer season. Emma had a poetry reading at the public library last October. She'd worked on her poem for 3 weeks, revised it 5 times, read it to me every night before bed until she had it memorized. My parents said they'd come. They didn't come. Dad said something came up with one of Ryan's games, a scheduling conflict. "So sorry, sweetheart." Emma told me it was okay. I watched her face when she said it. It was not okay. That was the moment I started keeping notes. Not because I was planning something, just because I needed somewhere to put the anger that had nowhere else to go. October, library poetry reading. They didn't show. Ryan had a scrimmage. November, Emma's class performed a Thanksgiving show. I saved them seats in the front row. They didn't come. Mom said she wasn't feeling well. I found out later she'd been at Sophie's gymnastics invitational that same afternoon. December, Emma got the highest score in her grade on the state reading assessment. I called my mom excited. She said, "Oh, that's wonderful, honey. Did I tell you Ryan made the elite travel team? Coach said he's the most talented kid he's seen in years." January, Emma's birthday. My parents showed up 40 minutes late with a gift card. A gift card for a 9-year-old. Jenny's kids each got wrapped presents with their names on the tags and cards with handwritten notes inside. I know because Emma found Sophie's birthday card once when we were at my parents' house. She read it and handed it back without saying anything. February, Emma asked me, very quietly, one night at bedtime, whether Grandma and Grandpa liked her. I told her of course they did. She nodded like she was trying to believe me. I lay awake until 2 in the morning that night. March, I went to my parents' house for Sunday dinner. My mom spent 45 minutes talking about Ryan's soccer stats. She asked Emma exactly one question. "How's school, sweetie?" Emma said fine. Mom nodded and turned back to my dad and started talking about Sophie's gymnastics coach. Emma excused herself and went to look at the bookshelf in the hallway. I watched my daughter choose a bookshelf over a dinner table where nobody talked to her. That was in March. Easter Sunday was 3 weeks later. The morning of Easter, I woke up early. Emma was still asleep. I could hear her breathing through the baby monitor I still keep in her room because old habits. I sat at my kitchen table with coffee and my phone, and I looked at the notes app I'd been adding to since October. 6 months of documentation. 14 specific incidents. 14 times my daughter had been overlooked, skipped, or outright ignored in favor of her cousins. I thought about the poetry reading. I thought about the birthday gift card. I thought about Emma asking if she was invisible. And I made a decision. I called my parents' mortgage company. Now let me explain this part carefully because the logic matters. 3 years ago, my parents had a financial crisis. Dad's hours got cut. A medical bill hit at the wrong time. They were behind on their mortgage and genuinely scared of losing the house. I was the one who helped. Not Jenny, not Kevin, me. I set up an automatic contribution of $1,800 every month, called it helping with expenses. My parents never called it anything except expected. No thank you at Christmas. No acknowledgement at birthdays. Just the assumption that the transfer would come, and that I would stay quiet and keep being grateful for the privilege of helping. I called the mortgage company that Easter morning, and I canceled the automatic payment, effective immediately. Then I got Emma up and helped her into her yellow dress, and we drove to my parents' house for Easter dinner. I sat through the whole meal. I watched my dad's eyes skip over Emma during the toast. I felt Emma lower her juice glass. I heard her whisper, "Am I invisible?" I kissed her hair and said, "Not anymore," and I meant every single syllable. After dinner, while the kids were hunting eggs in the backyard, my sister found me in the kitchen. "You okay?" Jenny asked. "You've been quiet." "I'm fine," I said. She studied me for a second. "Dad didn't mean anything by the toast. You know how he is." "I know exactly how he is," I said. "That's the problem." She opened her mouth, closed it, went back outside. Emma and I left before dessert. In the car, she fell asleep with her cheek against the window, and I drove home in the quiet and thought about what came next. My phone started ringing Tuesday morning. Monday the payment didn't process. Tuesday the calls began. Mom first. "Diane, there's something wrong with the account transfer. Can you check on it?" I let it go to voicemail. Dad called an hour later. Same question, different tone. More confused than concerned. Jenny called that afternoon. "Mom said something's going on with the house payment." "What's happening?" I texted back. "Everything's fine on my end." Which was true. Everything was fine on my end. By Wednesday, my dad called 4 times. By Thursday, my mom's voicemails had shifted from confused to worried to something that sounded a lot like panic. Friday afternoon, Jenny showed up at my apartment. I answered the door. Emma was at a friend's house. Good timing, honestly. "What is going on?" Jenny asked, walking in without being invited. "Mom is freaking out. The mortgage payment didn't go through. Dad called the bank and they said the automatic transfer was canceled." "It was," I said. Jenny stared at me. "I canceled it," I said. "Friday morning, Easter morning actually. Before we came over." "Why would you—" "Sit down, Jenny." She sat, mostly out of shock, I think. I opened my phone. I pulled up my notes app. "October 14th, I said. "Emma's poetry reading at the library. Mom and Dad said they'd come. Ryan had a scrimmage. They went to that instead." "Diane, November 20th. Emma's class Thanksgiving show. I saved them seats." "Mom said she wasn't feeling well. She was at Sophie's gymnastics invitational." "That's not fair. Competitions are." December 3rd. Emma got the highest reading score in her grade. I called Mom excited. She talked about Ryan's travel team for 10 minutes. Jenny was quiet. I kept going. "January, birthday gift card while your kids got wrapped presents with handwritten notes." February, Emma asked me at bedtime whether Grandma and Grandpa liked her. March, Mom asked Emma one question at dinner and spent 45 minutes talking about Ryan's stats. And then Easter Sunday, Dad toasted the grandkids who make them proud and looked at your 3 kids while my daughter sat there with her juice glass raised. I put my phone down. That's 6 months, Jenny. 14 incidents. I've been watching this happen since Emma was old enough to notice, and I've been telling myself it wasn't intentional and giving them the benefit of the doubt. And last Sunday, my 9-year-old leaned into me and asked if she was invisible to them. Jenny's eyes were wet. I didn't know she. Of course you didn't know, because nobody in that family pays attention to Emma. That's exactly the problem. I pay attention to her, Jenny said quietly. But her voice wasn't certain. When's the last time you called to ask about her stories? The ones she writes in her notebook? Silence. She's been working on one about a girl who finds a hidden library for 3 months. Did you know that? Jenny shook her head. I didn't think so. She was quiet for a long time. What do you want, Diane? What does this fix? Nothing, I said honestly. It doesn't fix 3 years of Emma feeling like she's second tier in her own family. It doesn't fix the poetry reading she memorized for 5 weeks while they were at a scrimmage. It doesn't fix her asking me if she's invisible. Then why? Because I'm done paying for people who hurt my daughter. That's why. Jenny left without saying much else. My parents came over Saturday morning. Both of them, together, which told me they'd coordinated. Dad looked frustrated. Mom looked scared. I made them coffee because I was raised to be a decent host even when I'm furious. We sat at my kitchen table, and Dad started with his version of calm. This is an overreaction, Diane. That toast was about all the grandkids. His eyes went to Ryan, Sophie, and Marcus, I said. Not to Emma. You're reading into it. I opened my notes app and put my phone on the table between us. Read it, I said. My mother picked it up. I watched her face as she scrolled. I watched my father read over her shoulder. Neither of them said anything for a long time. We didn't realize, Mom finally said. Diane, we didn't know it was this. Emma asked me if she was invisible to you. Silence. She's 9 years old, and she asked me that at Easter dinner while you were toasting her cousins. My dad sat back. Something shifted in his face. The frustration was still there, but underneath it was something else. Something that looked almost like shame. What do we do? Mom asked quietly. Tell us what to do. And here's where I had to be honest, even with myself. I don't know if there's anything to do, I said. Mom looked up. What do you mean? I mean Emma has been in that family for 9 years, and she already knows she's the afterthought. 9 years old and she already knows. You can't unknow that. We can change, Dad said. His voice was different now, quieter. Maybe, I said. But I've been watching this for 3 years and hoping you'd notice on your own, and you didn't. Emma noticed. I noticed. You didn't. So that's it, Dad said. We made mistakes and you just cut us off. I stopped funding a household where my daughter is treated like she doesn't count, I said. That's not cutting you off. That's a boundary. The mortgage is your responsibility, not mine. I helped because you needed it and I loved you and I thought we were family. But family goes both ways. My mother started crying. I recognized the sound. I'd heard it my whole life. And my whole life that sound had made me back down, apologize, smooth things over. I didn't back down. I need you to go, I said gently. I need to pick up Emma soon and I don't want her to come home to this. They left. My dad paused at the door. For a moment I thought he might say something real, something that reached across the distance between us. He said, I hope you know what you're doing. I closed the door. I stood in my hallway and breathed. Then I went and picked up my daughter from her friend's house, and we spent the rest of Saturday at the park feeding ducks and talking about the hidden library story she was writing. She told me the main character had just discovered a secret room with books in a language nobody had ever seen before. What does she do? I asked. She learns it, Emma said, by herself, because she doesn't wait for anyone to help her anymore. I looked at my daughter. I love that, I said. She grinned. I know, Jenny called 2 weeks later. I answered because part of me was still hoping. Mom and Dad are talking about refinancing, she said, to cover the mortgage difference. I just wanted you to know. Okay, I said. Are you ever going to restart the payments? No, I said, I'm not. A long pause. Diane, they're your parents. And Emma is my daughter, I said, and I choose her. Every single time. Jenny hung up. I haven't heard from any of them since. My parents figured out their mortgage. I don't know exactly how. Refinancing, I assume, like Jenny said. That was their problem to solve, not mine. Emma and I are fine. Better than fine, actually. We started a new Saturday tradition. Farmers market in the morning, library in the afternoon. She's been working through the fantasy section shelf by shelf, and she tells me about every book she reads in detail whether I ask or not. I always ask. Last month, her school had a creative writing showcase. Emma read the first chapter of her hidden library story out loud to an auditorium full of parents and students. She stood at that microphone with her notebook, and she read it without shaking once. Her teacher told me after that Emma has the most original voice she'd seen in 15 years of teaching. I cried in the parking lot for about 10 minutes. Not sad crying, the other kind. There was nobody from my family there, and Emma didn't ask why, she already knew. And she had already decided, like the girl in her story, that she didn't need to wait for anyone anymore. Neither do we, so that's my story. Was I wrong to stop the payments? Should I have tried harder to make them change first? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you would have done. And if any part of this hit close to home, hit that like button. Thanks for listening.